Good evening. I'm pleased to be able to call to order the meeting for the Pittsburgh Board of Commissioners for Monday, the 8th of May, 2023. And I'd ask you to join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. Commissioner Jay Farrell will lead us in the pledge.
Absolutely. Would everyone rise for the pledge? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
You have our agenda before you. And is there a motion to either approve the agenda as proposed or to modify it in some fashion?
Make a motion to approve.
Thank you. Motion by Commissioner Shipp,
Second.
seconded by Commissioner Farrell. Those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries unanimously. I would note that Commissioner Vose is not with us tonight. He is having surgery tomorrow and is not able to be with us. But there's a card that's circulating for him, and we want him to know that we're thinking of him. And we'll certainly miss his opportunities to second our motions. So at any rate. So while that card is circulating, we'd like to welcome Cindy and Terry Franklin and Lauren Franklin. And they are the family of our new town manager, Jonathan Franklin. Our town clerk, Carrie Bailey, will be administering his oath of office. And welcome. We are delighted to have you all here to witness this happy occasion.
You will raise your right hand, left hand on the Bible, please. Follow after me. I, Jonathan Lee Franklin,
I, Jonathan Lee Franklin,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of
of
the United States,
the United States,
that I will be faithful
that I will be faithful
and bear true allegiance
and bear true allegiance
to the state of North Carolina
to the state of North Carolina
and to the constitutional powers
and to the constitutional powers
and authorities which are
and authorities which are
or may be established
or may be established
for government thereof,
for government thereof,
and that I will endeavor to support,
that I will endeavor to support,
maintain, and defend the Constitution
maintain, and defend the Constitution
of the said state,
of the said state,
not inconsistent
not inconsistent
with the Constitution of the United States,
with the Constitution of the United States,
to the best of my knowledge and ability,
to the best of my knowledge and abilities.
so help me God.
So help me God.
I, Jonathan Lee Franklin,
I, Jonathan Lee Franklin,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and maintain
that I will support and maintain
the Constitution and laws of the United States
the Constitution and laws of the United States
and the Constitution and laws of North Carolina,
and the Constitution and laws of North Carolina,
not inconsistent
not inconsistent
therewith,
therewith,
and that I will faithfully
that I will faithfully
and impartially execute
and impartially execute
the duties of town manager
the duties of town manager
for the town of Pittsburgh, North Carolina,
for the town of Pittsburgh, North Carolina,
according to the best
according to the best
of my skills and ability,
of my skills and abilities,
according to the law.
according to the law. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome, Jonathan. Glad to have you, sir.
Thank you, Jay. Glad to be here. Absolutely.
I think we've broken him in pretty well so far. We've had a number of individual meetings with him and staff as well. So we're getting to know him and getting to know how you operate and So it's been a real pleasure for this last week, and we look forward to many more. We have a really reasonable agenda tonight. And so under citizens matters, Mr. Manager, would you like to start us off with your update?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. New sidewalks were installed on Chatham Business Drive. That is complete. 6 new stoplights or street lights, sorry, were installed inside the circle. I know that had been an issue with it being too dark around there with people walking back and forth. So those have been installed. The next merger governance meeting is 5/22, and that is in Sanford. The new pour in place surface is finished at the Kiwanis Park with new swings going in later this week. The rural transformation grant was submitted last week for Lewis Freeman Park. We are still waiting for some signature pages, but we should have that this week. New memorial benches from the Johnson Trust Fund are in and will be installed later this week. Splash pad will be opening May 26th, Friday before Memorial Day. And then overall, as you mentioned, Mayor, this was last week was the first week. Had a great time. Definitely the best first week I've had in the 4 jobs I've had. So I appreciate everybody for being so welcoming and staff being so helpful in that transition. So looking forward to moving forward.
Excellent.
Thank you.
My update celebrates the idea that over the last couple of weeks, I have cut more ribbons for new businesses than any other week I can think of, perhaps in the last 6 years that I've been mayor. It's been a real banner day, series of days and weeks, starting with Fidelity Bank here in town, which is, we didn't do a ribbon, but we did a little shovel of dirt. Caldwell Banker, Rachel's Native Plants down at the plant, Heart and Olive Real Estate Company on Thompson Street, the new Marigold Art and Vintage Shop on West Street, the Traveling Cafe down at Sanford Road, and looking forward to going out to Mosaic this next week and cutting the ribbon at the Guild. So that alone speaks for the incredible growth, the incredible sense of community that we have as we welcome new businesses to our community. So it's a real pleasure. Mayor Pro-Tem Baldwin.
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor. First, let me start with the Triangle J Council of Governments. I did not attend the meeting. However, I'm going to tell you all the new proposed name, which is the Central Pines Regional Council. And that has to be voted upon by all of the member governments. And so it was on our agenda under the consent agenda to approve that. So you cannot officially change that name until all the member governments agree to that. I attended the AHAC meeting, which was very, very good. The Chatham County Planning Director was there to talk about the UDO. And as I said, it was very interesting, new information in reference to affordable housing. Some of their ideas such as compact community and different things was just very impressive. It may be things that we can place in ours to make it more interesting and more appealing to the developers. So, and as I said, it was very good. And it was a question and answer session more so, and an informative session where the members of the AHAC, which of course is the Chatham County Affordable Housing Advisory Committee, asked questions relevant to not just the UDO, but several things within Chatham County. They asked about the Ben Fast, and they got great answers about that. The meetings, there will be another one in Moncure. I think it's on May 24th, 2023, which will be a open house discussion about what's going on with Ben Fast as a FYI for the community. And of course, that's an open meeting. But as I said, it was very, very good. And that is something I think that would be good to have in other areas as well. Maybe we could have something like that.
They had a soundboard issue earlier today, and a piece is broken, so they're having to manually adjust everything. So there may be a little feedback she's trying to work on.
And also in reference to the AHAC, I will say this, that Kyle will be the actual representative now from the town board. And So I will no longer be the official representative for Pittsburgh Town Board. There will also be another at-large member, which is her name is Sharon Taylor Gray, and she's been in Pittsburgh. She's lived in Pittsburgh all of her life, attended school here in Pittsburgh, but she will be the new member at large. But I may be attending some of the meetings, but it's just, because it's an open meeting, so it'll just be like an FYI. So those are all the updates for me at this time.
Great,
Thank you.
thank you. Commissioner Bonitz.
Thank you, Mayor. I do not have any updates tonight from the Chatham County Climate Advisory Committee.
Commissioner Farrell.
Nothing at this time. On PBA is Wednesday morning. I'll be there.
Commissioner Shipp.
Sure. I was able to attend the City Vision Conference in Concord and appreciate Janie, coming to speak with me there. It's a largely elected conference, and so it was good to have the staff perspective on things like growth in small towns. Attended AHAC also with Commissioner Baldwin. The next EDC meeting is May 18th, where we'll be able to introduce Jonathan to that group. And on Saturday, I was able to attend the Spring Chicken Festival in Siler City and came in second in the chicken picking. So we'll work on that for next year, but that's all I have.
Excellent. And is that,
Except, sorry, one the ladder truck outside is great to see. So they may still be out there depending on the length of this meeting, but good to see that in town after 3 years, I think, of ordering that. So
it is very exciting to see the new ladder truck and to take sort of a deep breath about the cost of it, which we can feel very proud that we have participated materially in. And I was telling the chief that your presence on this board, Commissioner Farrell, has always given me great insights into the issues involving the fire department, and I appreciate that greatly. So
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Appreciate that.
we all have our areas of expertise, and that's one that we appreciate greatly. Commissioner Vose was kind enough due to his illness to give Dan Perry and myself the tickets to the local on Lorax dinner. So we enjoyed that last night in his absence. Now is the time for public comment. Madam Clerk, is there anyone signed up to
No,
speak?
ma'am.
Nobody signed up. Next then is our consent agenda. The consent agenda is before you and is made up of 8 different items, mostly for review and for your approval. Is there a motion to either approve the consent agenda in all 8 aspects, or is there any aspect to be removed and put on the agenda?
I would like to remove the downtown development quarterly update.
Okay,
Because I have a question regarding one issue on that, please.
all right. Number 5, then we'll come off the consent agenda and would that be old or new business?
Old business, I think.
Okay, we'll put it in as 3
Yes, that'd be,
under old business.
thank you.
All right, is there a motion on the balance of the consent agenda?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Farrell,
Second,
seconded by Commissioner Bonitz. Those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries unanimously. We have no public hearings tonight, but we have 3 items of old business. We are carrying forward from the last meeting, a resolution regarding a climate action plan. And my intention in asking the board to consider this was basically that I am very anxious for us to actually have an opportunity to make measurable progress on something that seems so unmeasurable. But it is this resolution for climate action plan is an important first step. And when I met with Jonathan Franklin this past week, it was his suggestion, and I think it's an excellent one, to be able to pass this plan into part of our strategic planning concept that we are doing with Triangle J, Central Carolina. Yeah, it's going to take me a long time to get used to that. And that is an excellent idea. But I also think that Triangle J needs to understand what our concerns are that are not just generic climate concerns, but they're also things that maybe are particular to our town. And so two of them have come up in just the last little while, and I'd just like to put them forward so that we can think about how we can advise Triangle J to help us put finishing touches on the climate action plan. And one of them is, the county of Chatham has, for the last 2-3 years, required builders in the unincorporated parts of Chatham County to recycle construction debris and construction waste. And this is a major contributor to filling landfills. And it would be my suggestion that we think about requiring that same kind of thing. It's a resolution that was done in 2020 signed by Karen Howard, the chair of the commissioners, which instituted the policy of requiring construction waste to be sent to one of 3 landfills that are approved by the county. Those landfills are required to recycle at least 30% of the waste that they receive. That seems like sort of a low bar to me, but I think we could start with that and see how that went on. The other thing that continues to concern me, and you all will laugh, but ever since 2015, when I was elected first, I have been trying to get us to our waste hauler. It's now GFL, and they do the recycling portion of our collection with Sunoco, a company that's out of Raleigh. And with recent controversy about the ability to recycle plastics and the market for plastics, I thought it was really important for us to understand what's happening to the materials in our blue can that we put out tonight that will be collected tomorrow. What do they go into the landfill in the dark of night, or do they actually get recycled? What is Sunoco doing with our recyclables? So I have 3 dates that Sunoco has put forward. They would be glad to have us come and visit their plant and speak to them, ask questions, find out what's really happening to our recycling. On the 15th of May at 10 o'clock, the 31st of May at 10, or June 14th at 9. And so if the board would look at their calendars and let me know, I don't think we can get everybody together, nor do I think it's advisable to have to do that for open meetings law purposes, but it would be an opportunity for us to go and get some really valuable information. And so if you'll speak to me about what suits on your calendar, perhaps we can stagger sufficiently so that we don't run into having too many people meeting at the recycling company. It's low-hanging fruit like that. It's the little things. When Jonathan Franklin and I talked, I said, I'm not an engineer. I'm not somebody that has the high-tech kind of knowledge that would help me to work with water quality issues or pipes or what, the merger with Sanford or whatever. But what I can say is that I'm very, very interested in the environment. I always have been. You may remember that I went to the Mayor's Climate Change Conference in Chicago back in 18, I think,
It was 2018.
And it was an amazing process to be there with other mayors, big towns, little towns like ours. And it would be my hope that we could make some progress on climate over the next little while. So if you could be thinking about some of your little things, and think about the things that we can tell Triangle J that we're interested in tackling, I think it would be a really important step that we could make. Therefore, I'm not going to ask you to approve the resolution tonight, but to give us feedback so that we can understand what we can do as a small town with a small budget and what we might be able to do with just a lot of ingenuity. Any discussion on that tonight? Or would you like more opportunity to think? Okay,
We'll have the board.
well then let's, okay.
Yeah, I would like to chime in and express my gratitude to you, Mary Perry, for bringing this, raising this concern. From a policy making standpoint, I think of all the things that this board can do, putting into words the consensus of this group. However we reach that consensus, whatever that consensus may be, I think it's vitally important that we do that and that we do that as quickly as we can, reasonably. And so I'm glad that this draft has been presented for everyone's review. I hope that people will think about it, and perhaps at the next meeting we can consider approving that or with changes if necessary. I especially like the fact that this is, while you've suggested that this may go straight into the Triangle J Council of Governments process for assisting us with a strategic plan, that it leaves open those decisions to staff. I especially like that there's guidance in the document for particular directions of how a climate action plan ought to be constructed for the town, or what it ought to include. It's just, I think we all agreed that it's so important preserving the environment for future generations and being responsible stewards of our resources, as well as promoting economic growth and job creation. And that's what this document seeks to do, and that's what a rigorous climate action plan ought to do. I think we need to invest in the future and a cleaner and safer environment, and a sustainable world for future generations. So every dollar that this town government invests in something that consumes energy has a direct impact on the climate. And so every dollar we invest in cleaner energy, whether it's energy efficiency or solar or electric vehicles, is also an investment in job creation and increased energy independence. So we're surrounded by it now. We've got Toyota battery in Guilford County, and VinFast will be built in the southern part of our county, and Wolf Speed's going to be built over on the other side of Siler City. In farther away in High Point, Thomas Built buses are building electric school buses. Siemens in North Carolina is manufacturing components for cleaner energy, ABB as well. So we're investing in our local and state economy when we go in the direction of cleaner energy. And these are just some of the North Carolina companies that are relevant to this burgeoning industry. I think the most important thing that I want to really emphasize to the public and to the board and to staff is my understanding of the massive amounts of federal support that are pouring forth. And that the next 4 years, we've already seen the first year of it because most of these funds are 5-year funds, historic investments. And these are historic investments in infrastructure of any kind. And so for the opportunity for us to, as we grow rapidly as a town, the opportunity for us to do that in a way that's in line with the 21st century, in line with the best technologies, and in line with efficiency and all of these values, these principles of preserving the environment and keeping the air clean. It's just a tremendous opportunity for us in human history, to be honest with you, because the United States is such a massive presence on the globe. I really hope that we can come to an agreement so that staff are empowered to take advantage of these grant opportunities. And that we not miss the ball. So thank you for hearing me.
I would say too, that right before the meeting started, I spoke with Chuck Smith about the issue of the construction debris. And he let me know that right now Chatham Park is involved in a complete review of their sustainable procedures. And this is a very apt and timely thing to be discussing, that they're getting ready to do this in the largest section of Chatham Park, making policy for the entire 7,200 acres. And we certainly need to be in there working together as we come up with these kinds of policies.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else?
I just think I'm happy to work with you on this, John. I think it's important too to highlight what the accomplishments that we've made. So there was a resolution in 2019. And then, since then, there's been significant things like the open space and tree protection elements and bike and pedestrian plan, the UDO with environmental protection and open space in it. And even in the land use plan that we'll talk about here in a second, I guess the talking about dense development, preserving natural resources and natural resources and conservation section of that land use plan. So, I think we have, I share some of your feelings about the pace of government, but I think we have made significant progress even over the last 4 years on many of these things. I think it's important to highlight those as we set goals for moving forward too.
Good. Good.
Yes. And in addition to that, I would like to say it's a great idea to do this with the Triangle J Council of Governments. They can certainly lend a lot of information to you, and it's very important. Climate, as we know, if we don't have a good climate, what are we going to do? So, but basically, I think it's a great idea, and I'm certainly in favor of it.
Yeah, we don't need to reinvent the wheel.
No.
Okay. All right. Our next item then, as we hold those thoughts for next meeting, is a discussion of the land use plan. One of the things that I wanted to, because we have such a reasonable agenda, as far as time is concerned, it seemed like an excellent opportunity to be able to create a space for us to talk about the land use plan and to understand it perhaps a little bit better, or to put our concerns or cautions out for discussion. So Janie Phelps, we've got you and our new planner, Randy Cahoon Tingle. to address us tonight and sort of revisit some of the ideas and let us really take more of a deep dive and ask some questions that maybe we didn't have an opportunity to address last time. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So we're happy to talk about it again, and the planning director, Randy, is here to assist as well. So I put together a short presentation. There was one main point of it, and wasn't completely sure about what else I want to talk about, but we can move forward with that at the end. So just to give you a history on this, the process, we signed the contract in July of 2022. The staff discussions began in August of 2022. We started the stakeholder meetings in September. And the first version of the draft plan was available online. So I gave an update to everyone here on the January 23rd meeting with a look ahead, and that this would be in front of you all in April. And then we also let you know that this draft was online to view. And then there was another draft plan that was put out in February. And then I also sent an email out on March 23rd with the final draft and a document to provide comments, concerns, and any questions, and a date of when this item would be before you all for discussion and potentially a vote. And then the plan was adopted on April 10th. So just to clear up some potential confusion, the difference between zoning and a land use plan. Zoning is regulatory, so that means it's very strict to the book. You have to go off of what it says. Land use plan is visionary, or it's recommended. It's up for interpretation. There's specific uses for there's specific uses and lot standards in zoning, and then land use plan is about the future of the areas. So it might be to remain as is, or the view of what you want to see it in the future. And then also zoning is current planning, and the land use plan is long-term planning. And so I say mostly straightforward because the UDO is up to some interpretation, and then the land use plan is mostly interpretations because it's up to the board and how they view things. So I have a couple of examples. For example, in the use table, we have under commercial uses, the service establishment personal. It's only permitted by right in these zoning districts. And then, for example, the traditional neighborhood infill description, it says it supports small scale office and commercial uses, may also be appropriate in some areas. So when you would have a plan come forward to you, that would be up to you all to take a greater look of the area and see if it fits that definition. There is a process to amend. So it's treated as a text amendment, and it must follow the same process. And we would need to have the draft language proposed versus what is currently in there, the reasoning for the change, and present it to the planning board for recommendation to the Board of Commissioners, public hearing and decision meeting to discuss the proposed changes. And then it can be tabled, or you can make a decision at that meeting.
Excuse me, I'm just going to say that our conversation earlier today seemed to be centered more on the future land use map, but perhaps some of the language as well. So staff would certainly be eager to hear concerns and give us some area where you feel that we probably need to go back and revisit. And then the process is, of course, this one, but just feel that probably, an awful lot more detail about what we need to change and how we might go about accommodating something a little bit more.
I think it was Commissioner Shipp who said that, people have a tendency to look at that map
Yes, ma'am.
and freeze on that map and not go to the textual discussions. And I think that I'm guilty because I think that one of the concerns that I had was about the east side of Hillsborough Street.
Yes, ma'am.
That I think we've been back and forth about what do you do in a community like the Hillsborough Street area where you've got a gateway to the community. you've got historic houses, you have historic houses on large lots that need the infill that is prescribed in some of these amendments that you all proposed. And I think, Kyle, I think that when we talked about how it was that the land use plan needs to be interpreted, I thought that you had a lot of interesting thoughts about the flexibility that's involved in that.
Mhm.
Do you want to go into more depth or thought about that?
I'm not sure exactly, I guess, but like what I said before, I guess when we were talking about this, is that it is a 65-page document. And so
Yes.
we do tend to look at the map, or, developers or others tend to look at that map and say, this line is here, this line is there, but that's not how the tool is intended to be used. And so I think, in particular, this has a lot of good things in there about the whole concept of the downtown support area and that new district or new, idea in the land use plan. And then the section about historic home, the historic district in particular, for the concerns that Mayor Perry had. So,
Well, what you currently have is a lot of structures that are on the National Register. One of the ways that zoning sort of comes into play is when you have a locally designated district, which the State Historic Preservation Office essentially recognizes. And it allows some level of, it certainly is not as, it's more restrictive. That's the word I'm looking for. It's more restrictive than certainly just plain old zoning stuff. I don't fault anyone for going straight to the map. I'm going to say that any planning procedure that involves something that starts out with a map tends to sort of end with a map with very little attention to the actual wording. But I'm going to say that the establishment of a regulatory historic district could be an option. There's an awful lot of other options for that. I'm certainly going to say that in terms of getting the land use plan updated, good news, it did happen. Part of the changes that came in 2021 with the adoption of 160D is that the town is expected to update on a regular basis. So certainly going back and looking at a small area being downtown. I don't think that's all that small, but you know what I mean. Basically, if you zeroed in on a particular section, you could either remove potential uses or suggested uses. You could also go in and add an extra layer of protection. I've certainly been talking to Teresa and others about potentially establishing that. But I will certainly say that, as Jenny was pointing out, this is the process. It's not all that arduous. It's quite similar to a text amendment. So it's not that tough. And I certainly would like to explore it with you all, sort of workshop it a little bit and then go forward with some changes. In this case, I think it would be a map from the plan and some text from the plan. So I'd like to sort of zero in, if you don't mind. I don't mean by myself. I mean with the help of others. That's the request is from some assistance and some guidance, if you don't mind.
and I think conceptually too, some of the more protective things would be in the UDO or in the zoning versus the land use plan too. So
Yes,
I think that's an area to focus on, and how we've continued to update the UDO frequently, which I'm a fan of.
As of 2021, the land use plan is actually the thing that gives you the power to have a zoning ordinance. It certainly gives you the basis for changes. You point right straight to it. It's consistent with a plan in this way.
Mhm.
So I certainly want to work closely with you all to, if there's anything you need strengthened or changed, I'd like to work, of course, with my own staff, but I'd like to get it strengthened in a way that you felt was important. And then obviously I would like to amend the UDO in a similar manner.
But I think one of the things that, because I wasn't able to be at the April 10th meeting, I felt later when looking at the downtown support area, it it advocates for what I said was so important, which is to infill medium to high density housing types. But then it says in tandem with retail, commercial, lodging and office use. And because I've been hanging around here altogether too long, when we've been through areas of concern on Hillsborough Street that dealt with the Deacon property and dealt with where is it that you stop the commercial and come directly into preserved residential? And I think that was on my mind as a result of that, because it's fine to think about support, retail support and commercial support perhaps in a big town, but we have such a defined footprint, except for Chatham Park, and it doesn't seem as though we need retail in the middle of Hillsborough Street. We need it down in the central district.
Well, actually, to sort of address your question, I hope I'm going to sort of address it. Like to do a little more than sort of, but I want to start by just saying that in terms of defining where the retail begins and ends, that's 100% a zoning map issue. So that would be something that you clearly define there. Very obviously, your land use plan needs to back up your contention about where things start to transition from a really highly commercial area down to a lesser, and as it sort of peters out, as it's heading into a mostly residential, there can certainly always be room for changes that allow a little bit of a mixture of uses. But I'm going to say the hard parameters of your downtown business district need to be laid out in the zoning map, and that would be the first place I would go. But I would obviously want a foundation within the land use plan. If we do have you all take a look at and you do ultimately adopt something that is not quite consistent with the plan, it's a very obvious immediate map change to the plan itself. So there are many, many ways to amend the map and the plan. And I'd like to explore several over time.
Well, I'm certainly open to that. Are there other questions or concerns by other board members that need to be addressed?
I do share many of your concerns, Mayor Perry, especially as they've been raised by, as these conservatives have been raised by the Atlas Boone House. And what it seems is now the likelihood that it's going to be demolished. Commissioner Farrell, I think I've heard you express concerns also about the creeping of retail or commercial northward on Hillsborough Street. And related, I would love it if we could formalize our historic district somehow, with good reason and with your fine experience. I think that we can figure that out.
Well, certainly in Selma, we did establish 3 separate districts that previously existed, but we had them adopted and recognized by the state. It was about a 17-month process, but I was there every step of the way. So let me say I have a good deal of experience in that area.
That sounds wonderful. And I trust that you would be able to help us navigate through some of the more sticky parts of historic preservation policy.
Yes.
Especially from my early youth, my father, when I was a child, bought a house in the Wilmington Historic District. And as he was steeped in the construction trades, he knew how things ought to be done. Headed his own, albeit commercial construction company, but he knew how to hire skilled people who knew how to get the work done and do it properly. But even he sometimes spoke disparagingly of the hysterical district because of the extreme imposition on certain aesthetic matters. And so I think it has to be a fine line that's drawn that encourages and yet preserves. So,
well, there's a great number of options, and certainly starting out slowly and then moving in. And certainly there may be a few moments where you feel like you're at a hill you'd wish to die on. And there's a number of other areas where you just are quite calm and there's not a lot to it.
Yeah.
So I would certainly like to help you all through the process. Also, in terms of the land use plan, the Stewart has certainly been willing to hold another workshop about it. Obviously, work for a fee. Be lovely if they threw in a freebie, but they're not going to. So that is one option, but I definitely would at least like to start with staff initiated and some guidance from.
I mean, if we could get a slight consensus or even a part vote on getting rid of the retail option in that area, then that would give staff some direction to put some language together for a text amendment change. And then, of course, we could always come back to you with options on some type of historic district designation. And Janie also has some ideas about how we can do that another way.
Yes.
So I think small steps and maybe lead to a larger step down the road.
And Janie, while it's on our minds, do we have progress on the demolition of the Deacon property?
Yes, I'll go grab them.
Good. So is that seems to be the direction that you'd like staff to move?
Well, I think from the zoning perspective, we have, I guess would call it protection from retail and that specific area. And I think that the land use plan has those concepts in about the historic. We do have a historic district, the federal designated district, based on structures that are sort of disparate at this point. But so I think that has some, tools we can use too. And the reality is that rezonings are, largely up to the will of the board. So I think we have existing protection with the tools that we have. I think we do need more vision overall of what we want where maybe, but the land use plan was a large step towards that with the update to the land use plan with all of the public input that we got through the workshops and the committee that worked on that over the months and all those things. So I mean, I think that's a solid effort there. I don't have any specific changes. I mean, we would obviously take things parcel by parcel if they were to come for a rezoning. But at this point, I'm comfortable with the tools that we have in our toolbox. That's it.
Yeah.
So I'm ambivalent about changes to the existing policy we just recently approved. I could see reasons for it and otherwise, but I wanted to elaborate a little bit more of my thoughts in this general area while we're on the subject, and I think I see people taking notes. So, on top of the concerns regarding creep of commercial uses, at the same time thinking about historic preservation. Janie, I think that it was you who put in an email something in the direction of recognizing the patterns of development as they change through a community's history and future. And I appreciate those thoughts because it seems to me that a town ought to be able to evolve and change while wanting to keep and uplift those structures that are kind of symbolic or iconic, even if they're humble. I also appreciate that, for example, French Connection exists where it does. And I wonder about how policies that we might consider now or in the near future might have prevented that from happening. Because I think of French Connection as one of those parts that's rich and wonderful about our community. And it's certainly quirky. And we've had we've had one planning director who implied that that would go away if we were to truly enforce our ordinances, because outdoor display of things for sale or something along those lines. So I also think that it's really important that we do have commercial near our residential, within walking distance, ideally. And along with those concerns goes, I think I want to say in the same breath as all of those four elements, the need for increased attention to density and walkability in our residential growth. So thank you for hearing me.
To the matter of the contract.
Okay,
Yes.
so what you all have, I received this from Mr. Deacon. The first set is the signed contract. And then the second one is the certification that there's no asbestos. So he had a few pieces of asbestos and those needed to be removed. He did that, he did it properly, which I have redacted some of the information. I didn't feel like the financial part of it was important for the review that you all have. So those are the parts that have been redacted, and he's disposed of the asbestos properly, and the inspector has gone out and already done another inspection, which was just today, I believe. Is what on that second page. Yes, final visual inspection.
Yeah.
So now he's going to be taking this to KBS, and they will be going and getting all the permits that are needed for demolition. And he said within the next 30, Mr. Deacon said within the next 30 days that it should be taken care of.
But I don't know, I've just gone over it very quickly, but I didn't see a time frame. I know that Mr. Deacon said 30 days, but.
Right, so the asbestos report, the final report was just done today.
Yeah.
5/8, so he's giving that report to KBS. And then KBS, they're usually pretty quick. I know our code enforcement also goes through them for some of their properties that they have issues with. And so they're usually pretty quick. So he said, hopefully by the end of the week, and I'm more than happy to follow up with him. I've been nagging him plenty and not done until the property is in a better state.
I guess that only leaves the discussion about, once it's torn down. And then he has the opportunity to rebuild at his leisure. Then the question would be, how can he rebuild? And we noted that you sent the ordinance allowing the rezoning, indicating that we would look at the elevation, but there was no discussion of the footprint of the building, which I had remembered from a historical standpoint, informational historical standpoint, that the footprint is almost as important as the elevation. But there was a provision number 2 in that contract that allowed the town to, at the time of demolition, think about what other conditions and considerations the town felt that they wanted to make. And I thought that was a real saving sentence, because it would give us an opportunity once the footprint of the building and the elevation might be measured before it was demolished, that might give us a fresh opportunity to look at what it is that our parameters require for the rebuilding on the property.
Yeah, I was, obviously I wasn't here when everything happened, but that ordinance wasn't as clear as what I've normally been involved with, which is unfortunate, because that's what was adopted. I'm trying to pull up the actual ordinance when it was done. Yeah.
The assumption would be that when they go to redevelop, just here, other features and issues remain to be decided at the time site plan approval is requested for the development. So certainly that does give you another swipe, but I would hope.
Yeah,
That would be
that's,
my belief.
I wanted us to remember that because I think that could be very important.
Yes, ma'am.
Given the fact that perhaps the minutes weren't and the ordinance perhaps was not as specific as some of the historical memory is. I thought that it was important that sentence exists so that we can delve into what other additional things might be of import. You know,
Well,
given the time and the changing circumstances.
And also at the time that this was adopted, you all were also reviewing site plans, and now site plans are reviewed administratively.
Okay, that's right. Yeah, okay.
So then the board needs to express concern now regarding footprint or other parameters of redevelopment of that site.
Or that, is this a site plan that the board wants to review?
On an
And ask-
exceptional
and
basis.
ask staff to come to us with the, with the site plan so that just because it's an exceptional situation in an exceptional place.
I don't think we can take more authority on a specific site or parcel. I don't think there's a way to do that.
I think an interpretation of that particular rezoning is that it was directing it back at the board because at that time the board was reviewing site plans. So I think your interpretation is right.
Well, it may be something that we'd like to ask our town attorney to take a look at. After all, he was the one that drafted the original ordinance and he may have some remembrances of the issues as well.
And I would point out also that there is still, I believe, the audio record of that evening.
I looked, but I couldn't locate it because it's archived in a different sort of a way.
Yeah. But I believe that all of those old audios, as far back as we had the data, were uploaded to the YouTube channel
That's correct.
as audio only.
Yep.
Well, and I think that speaks to why Carrie Bailey's job is so important.
Mhm.
Not needing to put any additional pressure, but it's important because words matter and the minutes you take and the minutes that we review are have meaning later, and it's fascinating to be able to see something like this move through the process and hope that we remember it next time. So, okay. Are there any other concerns or questions about this process as we've brought it up?
Commissioner Farrell, would you like any way to elaborate on your thoughts about creep of?
I'm very comfortable with the land use plan and the way it fits. I had a question last meeting, could we possibly rezone it back to residential? Keep it from moving that way, but I don't think Mr. Messick said that was a proper way to go.
Well, and the chairman of the planning board, I spoke with the other day and he said, well, gee, I would think that the zoning would have expired as a result of their inability to perform the way they should have to preserve the property. And I said, when I was a member of the county planning board, almost every project had an expiration date. And if it hadn't been performed, then it would revert back to the prior zoning. And I don't believe that we've ever done that here at the town level. But that might be something we'd want to consider. Because situations change, and if somebody does not perform the way they're supposed to perform, they should lose the the privilege of,
The wastewater law, you know. Can't get us some wastewater and just sit on it for years.
so,
But does Mr. Deacon have any idea what he has plans? For that property, has he mentioned any ideas, future?
Not after demolition.
In terms of it reverting back to residential, was there a clause in that particular ordinance or no?
I can double check. I'll have to go back to the specific one because there might have been a different version in 2018 than what we had in 2021.
Okay,
So I would just have to go back and double check.
okay, thank you.
well, I think this has been very useful. And I really appreciate this discussion. Really, I think it's been very helpful.
I would like to just add one thing in reference to that stretch of Long Hills Farm. I actually would be certainly in favor of that being dedicated as historical. I know with the French Connection, I do like that there, but I would certainly be in favor of that being considered historical and residential.
Thank you. I know the oldest house still standing in Pittsburgh is the Bob Gunn House. You can't see it from Hillsborough Street anymore, but it's the last structure facing the courthouse and the oldest the oldest of the old buildings originally faced the courthouse. So that's a real special one to preserve too. So, well, thank you so much. I think this was a very useful discussion. And then the last item under old business then is the downtown development quarterly update that Mayor Pro-Tem Baldwin has asked us to pull off the consent agenda.
I really was not that concerned about the update itself, but I just needed some clarification in reference to the social district. And was that something that I don't recall us voting for that or approving the social district? We did not.
Would you like me to speak on that? Mayor Perry, this is Teresa Thompson.
Yes.
Okay, well, good evening, everyone. So we've had one subcommittee meeting on social districts last week. And the next step is taking this discussion to the Economic Vitality Committee next week. They will give a recommendation to the Downtown Advisory Board, which will then give a recommendation to the Town Board. So I'll be giving you a presentation probably the second week meeting in June for possible consideration. So we will have a recommendation on if we would like to pursue a social district, the location of it, and parameters around that.
Okay, that's what I want a clarification on because it's indicated here, evaluate research requirements and potentially create a social district. I would think that if we're going, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, yes, ma'am. That's just a work plan item. So that was what the town board adopted back in November, just for us to evaluate and potentially create the social district. So we're in the middle of that process right now.
Okay.
Oh, I was just going to add, it's quite a long process. It doesn't happen in 5 minutes, and there's quite a few opportunities for you to adjust the map and to adjust the language, the locations, and all of that. It's not you don't just do it. There's quite a few pieces, including the ABC board approving the proposed map and the location and the ordinance that this board will adopt.
Yes.
Yeah, so all those things have to happen. That's all in the future.
That's what I was really getting at, because I do want that to go, certainly it has to go before the board to make that decision. And I was making sure that that wasn't overlooked.
Yes, ma'am. Not at all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If I may, Mayor Perry, I was going to mention the upcoming work plan that will be going to the town board at your next meeting. I just wanted to mention that the discussion of historic preservation has been on the Downtown Advisory Board's mind now for several months. So, we've talked to Shippo, Siobhan Moore is on the advisory board with Hobbs Architects. She has familiarity with historic preservation. Randy does, Jonathan, we've all been in communication with social districts as well. But so those are the historic preservation. There's 3 items in the proposed work plan, design projects number 11, 12, and 13. And then also there's discussion of reevaluating the downtown boundaries. So that's in the proposed work plan as well, and that's design action item number 1. So I'll go into that in a little more detail for you at the next meeting, but I just wanted to mention that what you discussed tonight has been included in the proposed work plan, and we've had conversations with the new planning director about that as well.
Okay, and I would be hopeful that we could have you in person when we discuss those, because
Yes, ma'am.
for some reason it's hard for me to hear you in.
Not just you, Mayor.
Okay, yes, I'll be there in person.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. So those are our items of old business. We have no new business, no miscellaneous, and no closed session. Are there any other concerns that the board needs to discuss tonight, or is there a motion to adjourn?
I don't have any concerns, but I certainly would like to thank Mr. Jackson for being our interim town manager. We certainly do appreciate it. Thank you.
I'd also like to take a moment of appreciation, but Chief Johnson has left the room. Is that right? Well, please pass along to him my gratitude for police department's work and any other staff on Oakwood Drive and Park Drive. The temporary speed limit warning sign and the permanent one that's solar powered. I've gotten 3 people who've expressed gratitude for that, and I would add myself to that. And so it's really nice to see it, and hopefully those folks in that neighborhood will feel a little bit more supported in their efforts to calm traffic.
Excellent. Okay.
Well, I don't have anything really major, but I do want to emphasize whatever we can do to get some lighting on 501 South. If anybody was at the Havoc and the Mod Thursday, Friday, Saturday, they're out in the road. I'm afraid somebody's going to get hit by a car or a truck, and we need lighting somehow. I don't know if we got to get a pole light or something up there and put up and down through there. That's a very dark area.
Mr. Manager, you had talked about 6 new lights. But is that not sufficient?
I think that was around the courthouse. I already installed it in last week,
Okay,
but they didn't go south very well.
so down around the Mod or the ABC store in that realm, okay.
Okay, we'll take a look at it.
1 or 2 along there too, because it's not. People aren't crossing at the crosswalks, so if there's a way that we could put up some type of barrier to people crossing, not at the crosswalk, that's another concern. But and then overall, if we're successful in redesignating 15501, that will help us with, I think, what we can do in that area. Also gives us more freedom to do what the town wishes to do there. So.
Yeah. We'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Bonitz, seconded by Commissioner Farrell. Those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Thank you.